Hello. Today I wanted to show you my VIC-20 again, but since I did my last video on the VIC-20, I've upgraded it with JiffyDOS. I've talked about JiffyDOS before. It's very popular with this Commodore 128 and the 64, but they also make it for the Plus 4 and the VIC-20. I did a video with my Plus 4 with JiffyDOS demonstrating how much faster it loaded a program there, and I wanted to do it with the VIC-20 as well. So here we go, the VIC-20 again. I have the Sidekick 20, which is a Sidekick 64 with the VIC-20 adapter, so I can have HDMI output from the VIC-20. And I'm just using that as a RAM expansion. I'm not loading the game from that. I'm loading the game from an SD2IEC. So with the Plus 4 video, I did it with a Pi 1541 floppy drive emulator, but I wanted to show it with the SD2IEC as well because it also gets accelerated with JiffyDOS. The SD2IEC can automatically detect if you have JiffyDOS and talk JiffyDOS speak and accelerate just like a floppy drive that has JiffyDOS upgraded into it. It is a little bit more difficult to show the acceleration on a VIC-20 versus, say, a Plus 4 or a Commodore 128 or a 64 because the VIC-20 has so much less RAM. It only has 5K of RAM, where the other ones have, way more than that, 64K in most cases. But there are RAM expansions for the VIC-20, usually with stuff like this. This thing can load games right from the cartridge as well as provide RAM expansion and the HDMI, but there are RAM expansions for the VIC-20 that are just RAM expansions and don't have any kind of loading capability. So then you would need a floppy drive or an SD2IEC or something else on the serial port to load stuff. So you might want to have the acceleration. I forgot to mention before that JiffyDOS provides wedge commands, so it makes it a lot easier to type stuff, much shorter commands. Today I'm going to be using the file browser because that works really well with the SD2IEC. In order to do this, I had to pick a game that is 35K, which is the maximum amount of RAM expansion you can add to a VIC-20, so that the file size will be big enough to be able to show how much faster it is. So I'm going to show you what it's like to load a 35K VIC-20 game on, this is JiffyDOS disabled, so it's standard kernel speeds, and here we go. Emu's Massive Hunt from The Future Was 8-Bit. See the lights going? This is the first loader part, so it's going to do this, and then it's going to load the actual game, which is, I believe, 91 blocks, which is the largest I could find. No, we don't want instructions. Here we go. And here we go. It's still loading. I did this test. It takes 55 seconds to load the game, which, is kind of long. Games for the Commodore 64 are bigger, so it can take even longer to load a game from an SD2IEC or a floppy drive that's very big on those platforms as well, usually longer, but here we go. I didn't show this part in my last video, but here we go. Okay, so you saw how long it took to load that, over, almost a minute plus the little extra time. I'm going to pause the video. I need to open up the VIC-20 to flip the JiffyDOS switch on, and it's hard to do while holding the phone, so I'm just going to pause. Hold on. Okay, we're back. I've turned off the computer, turned on JiffyDOS, and brought it back up. You may ask, why do I have to open a computer? I couldn't bring myself to drill a hole in this computer. It's such a classic computer. It's old. I don't want to make any modifications that can't be undone. Plastic's brittle. I could damage it if I try to do it. In other machines, when I've installed JiffyDOS, I'm able to kind of fish out the wire from the kernel chip and put it in a little plastic box and just kind of set it up there. But the way this one's configured, the wire is not long enough to reach out one of the existing holes. I'd have to do it out the cartridge port, and that's kind of full right now. So I just leave the screws taped, and I can just open it up and flip it whenever I want, which usually isn't that much. But anyway, back to where we are. We're gonna load Emu's Massive Hunt with JiffyDOS enabled. So here we go. Remember this booter part, so this isn't the main game yet. Remember the last time it took almost a minute. No, we don't want instructions. We're gonna load. Watch the light. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean 5 seconds. Give or take this little extra time. Oops. It didn't load. Hold on, I'll try to reboot and try again. Here we are trying again. I know it worked with JiffyDOS. This machine is a little finicky. For mom and dad, I think it's gonna work now. But you saw again, it was only 5 seconds. There we go, it worked. So it does work with JiffyDOS. This machine's a little picky. I kind of have to let it warm up, especially with the Sidekick. It doesn't want to boot immediately when it's cold, but then after it's warmed up, it seems to be fine. Welcome to the world of classic computers. They're not always going to work perfectly, but there we go. So thank you for watching.